Welcome to the TeleWellness Hub podcast. I'm here today with Dominique Sullivan. She is the author, creator, blogger of Perchance to Cook, where they have clean recipes for a delicious life. Welcome, Dominique.
Right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk with you. You can find Dominique on TeleWellnessHub.com as a recipe developer, a food blogger. She also does photography on her website. She is really focused on making healthier versions of classic foods so that it's fun recipes that no one would suspect is made with non-processed ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
Dominique, why do you do the wellness work that you do?
Well, I love food.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a mixture of like growing up with a mom who's from Europe, and she would always talk about how like unhealthy food here was. And so she would cook at home a lot. And she was always like, oh, why are these chemicals in this? And why do they cook with like these fake foods? And then, so I kind of grew up just eating more simple food at home. And then my husband, before we got married, got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So we had to really take a look at eating in a way to reduce inflammation. And we started taking a look at ingredient lists, and we actually went paleo for the longest time. And we noticed a change in how he felt. And I even noticed a change in how I felt when we were eating healthier. But yeah, that's how it all started. And now it's kind of evolved into, since I've had kids, eating with more of a balance, but also I like to call it like eating with one ingredient foods.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? I'm curious. I'm a mom too. So I feel like having kids changes everything on so many ways.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear the evolution. When you say eat with one ingredient foods, what does that look like?
Like last night for dinner, we had steak, and then I just roasted potatoes, cauliflower, and carrots, with just a little olive oil, but like nothing super complicated, just simple. And like, I know every ingredient because it's all one ingredient foods.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes it simple. And actually, so much in the wellness world, I think can get overcomplicated.
Yeah.
Yes. There are so many special approaches, special diets, special techniques, special tools. It can get overwhelming, not just like mentally, like doing research and navigating it financially. It can get expensive,
I also find that it kind of turns into like, this is good, this is bad. This is like, yes, this is no. When really it shouldn't be that. I think it should like try to find high quality ingredients and just try your best for what your body needs. Everyone's body is different.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. How long have you been doing this? I'm curious.
9 or 10 years. So it's funny because the recipes have changed a lot. A lot of them were like really paleo and Whole30, which I still eat that way, but I don't like characterize it that way when I'm cooking. I'm not like, this is Whole30, so I'm eating it this way. It's just like how we eat.
Got it. It's just become part of your lifestyle. It sounds like just a healthy living lifestyle. So for any listeners out there or viewers, I've known Dominique since college, so I'm just going to share that too. I knew we both went to University of Miami. I know she's been cooking for a long time. I got to taste some of the recipes. I think when you were starting, Dominique was an attorney. So I think that's a really interesting mix. So you've talked about being a mom, you had a background, you're working in legal work. I'm wondering, I think so often we think of people who are working in the wellness field as like their whole life is just wellness, right? Like they can dedicate all their time. But I know that when you created this, and even now, it sounds like you have a very full life and you're able to keep things simple and adapt your healthy eating and healthy nutrition based on, it sounds like, just where you're at in life. I'm curious, what are some of the challenges that you've seen to healthy eating?
Challenges that I've seen?
Yeah, whether it's in your own creation of recipes or in, whether it's like your work schedule. I know a lot of people maybe have a busy work schedule. And I'm imagining when you were working as an attorney or even now as a mom, you have kids. It's hard to really plan.
Well, before kids, I think I was doing things that are a little more complicated. Now I'm like, no, there's too many different kinds of flours. I don't have time for that. Less ingredients, more simple. And also just now, I have to have like a babysitter come so I can get work done. I can't just spend time thinking of creations or whatever. But no, a lot of my stuff's influenced by like when we go out to a restaurant, I'm like, oh, I could make that, but with almond flour instead, keeping it a little bit healthier.
Yes. So keeping inspired, it sounds like, so what's your approach to meal planning? I'm really curious about that. You're mentioning, you're going out to restaurants and then you're imagining what you could do for yourself. What's your approach to meal planning and preparation? What tips do you have for listeners who struggle with this?
So I plan out basically all of my dinners for the week, and I grocery shop for that. So I'm not like wasteful, and then I'm not stuck wondering what to cook. So during the weekdays, every day is planned. And then my lunches every day, it's either eggs with vegetables or some sort of a salad. So it's really easy to put together. Yeah, I just have a list based on what I know I'm going to eat. And then I shop for that, and everything's kind of like scheduled out.
Like a week in advance, usually, would you say?
Yeah.
With that one ingredient dinner idea in mind?
Yeah, like I went grocery shopping and I knew I would be making steak one night. That was the night. And then I'm going to make meat sauce another night. And then I turn that the next day into chili. And so that's like 2 nights of food. Yeah, I just pick out the recipes that I know the kids will eat and that Brennan and I like. And then that's just what I scout for.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Working smarter, not harder. And especially you bring up food waste, because that comes up a lot. I know just in the US, and it's hard when you're making a financial commitment to eating clean ingredients. It can get expensive. Yeah. So being mindful of, I guess, your consumption or how you plan things out.
Like we had leftover potatoes and carrots from last night, and I mixed it into an omelet today.
Okay.
So just basically we incorporate leftovers a little bit if we have them the next day, as much as we can.
Your recipes that you have on your blog, Perchance to Cook, do you do a lot of that? Do you give options for how to use maybe some of your side dishes? I have followed a lot of the recipes, and we'll get to that too. Like maybe what are your top most viewed recipes or your favorite ones? But I'm trying to remember, do you ever mention using maybe sides or incorporating ingredients in multiple ways?
I give them like alternative ideas if you need to change the recipe for different dietary needs, or if you want different like additions or substitutions, or even like how, if it's a side recipe, like I just updated a post, what you could serve with it, or how you could alternate ways of eating it.
Because I think that's helpful. It's just sometimes I think, I can speak for myself. I am not a food blogger. Cooking is not my forte. So sometimes I just don't think of certain aspects, and I may not necessarily get inspired the way you do, mentioning that you go to a restaurant and get inspired on how you can adapt a recipe.
I think of like, I guess a lot of stuff is personal to me. So one of my daughters had a dairy allergy. So when she was little and I was breastfeeding, I couldn't have dairy. So I was like, well, I still want chocolate chip cookies. So I created an olive oil chocolate chip cookie recipe. So a lot of things that have happened to me, I'm like, I still want to eat this food, but with this restriction. And so I just come up with the recipe that works for that.
Sounds like a really fun way to turn a challenge into something where you can use your creativity. Yeah. Yes. Now, you are a recipe developer as well, right? You can develop recipes. So I think maybe for those out there who may not be familiar, there are food bloggers, but not all of them necessarily create recipes as well, or?
I think you're supposed to. It's supposed to be like your own recipe, but like no one's created the chocolate chip cookie. So it's not like everyone's posting completely new, unique stuff, but it should be like the way you like to cook it. Maybe with your method or your tweak on ingredients, and she could just be like, this is your go-to recipe.
Right. What are some of the benefits you've noticed since you've made changes to your diet and really focus on healthy, clean ingredients?
Well, feeling better. I know that like when we first started eating paleo, we were like, wow, we have so much energy. But then since having kids, my hormones were off, and then felt like my health was off. And then I realized I wasn't eating enough protein. And so that meant like I needed to eat like Greek yogurt and foods that I didn't normally eat. more eggs, like really focusing on like protein. And it made such a difference for me, like no more cravings.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed it helped my hormones kind of balancing. So I think it's mostly just feeling better day to day.
For those that are maybe just starting out their journey, their wellness journey when it comes to looking at their food, and what advice do you have for listeners who want to make healthier choices, but maybe feel overwhelmed or don't know where to start? What would you recommend?
I would say you could start looking at organic products. I know they tend to be more expensive, but if you're going to make a recipe, organic flour, organic sugar, starting that way, you reduce like exposure to glyphosate and maybe other harmful pesticides and things like that. But then I would say just start looking at the ingredient lists. There shouldn't be anything added necessarily besides what's in that ingredient. Like I started using heavy cream in my coffee. It is so hard to find heavy cream that doesn't have gums in it. You know what I mean? Like it should just be cream and milk, but it's very hard to find products without like certain additives. And a lot of people are like, oh, gums are healthy. Like, I don't think it's necessary to add chemicals. I'm kind of like weirded out by the need to add so many chemicals in American food.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned, your mom being from Europe, you have just that background to have an eye for differentiation. See, I don't really know. I don't know necessarily all the research. Where do you find information about the additional ingredients? Or I guess I'll back up. What are some of the reasons they put gum in milk? Or cream or...
It's just like to keep it, like to preserve it so it lasts longer on the shelf. Or so for some things, so it doesn't mix together. It looks prettier. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. More visually appealing.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot in American food, right? Like they'll dye salmon,
It's ridiculous.
My girls at their cafeteria were coming home with apples, but we realized that they spray paint them red. Like you can see the stem had red on it. I'm not saying the school did it, but I'm just saying that whatever source. And then I found out that's a pretty common practice. It's some kind of like wax coating sealing that it has a little additional redness to appeal, I guess.
Yeah, there's actually something, I want to say the Environmental Working Group posted about it, but there's like a group of fruits and vegetables that are like the clean.
Oh, yes. The dirty dozen. Yes.
It looks like which foods are really affected by pesticides or any sort of chemicals they use to grow the crops. So I really try to stay organic on the dirty.
Yes.
It doesn't matter necessarily if my orange is organic because they've got that thick outer that protects what you're actually eating.
Right. That's a good idea. I'll have to do some research and add it in the link of the show notes to this, the Dirty Dozen, just for people to take a look at that.
Yeah. But I get a lot of info like on Instagram, like the Food Babe. She posts a lot of, like in Europe, this is what's in McDonald's fries. In the United States, and it's like twice the amount of ingredients. And you just wonder why. Or even like cereal or soda. It's the same brand, but they just have so much more chemicals and stuff in it. And I think we're going to see more and more our age group being really affected by sneaky little additives that's in everyday food.
Yes, that makes sense because they've done a lot of research. I've seen some research about just the shift in the ingredients in our foods in even 50 years, right? So something to be really mindful and aware of. How do you stay up to date on the latest research? Because I'm assuming that's a time-consuming thing. So it sounds like Instagram, being able to seek it can be easy to almost overindulge in information. I don't know about you, but it can be, right? Like there's so many things to be mindful of.
You know?
Yes. And that's why I love that you really want to find a balance, right? There's you want to be eating healthy, but you want to find a balance, right? Where it's not eating healthy doesn't become stressful.
Yeah, because I did some like postpartum workout from Glow Body PT, And she said something like in the middle of the workout, she's like, eat the birthday cake. Like, you don't want your daughter to be like, why doesn't mom eat cake? And then that kind of affect their relationship with food. And I was like, yes, exactly. So if they see, I'm not, I'm going to be cooking a certain way at home, but I'm not going to be so rigid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, we don't buy M&Ms because of the food coloring, but Trader Joe's has amazing like chocolate candies that are exactly the same. And they use spirulina to diet green. So to them, it's like chocolate candies aren't off limits, but we're not buying M&Ms.
Right. Do they know? Do they know?
Halloween? No, they can eat it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not going to be like crazy about it, but it's known for a fact some of the harmful side effects of M&Ms. So it's like, why would I even allow them to eat it? I feel bad knowing what it can do to their body.
Right. It becomes another thing to consider in parenting. I mean, I would say that eating is a huge factor in parenting, besides special diets, right? And dietary restrictions, which a lot of people have, I
mean, they're showing that I think it's one read something actually causes kids to be more hyperactive. My neighbor had to cut it out from her kid's diet, like no more Cheez-Its, because he was getting in trouble at school and acting out. And when she cut that out of his diet, he has calmed down.
Wow. I've seen that a lot. My background is as a counselor. There's a lot of behavioral links with a lot of dietary food. So there are now nutritionists also specializing in looking at how to make and adapt diets for different diagnosed disorders, like whether it's behavioral, ADHD, different things. And I just think it's interesting when you think of food as our fuel, right? Like just what would you put into your car? What would you put into your body? Definitely something.
Yeah, exactly.
To be.
But it is a little maddening just knowing like that it is a known thing that certain foods are really bad for you. And our government's like, sure, keep eating it. We'll keep selling it. Other countries ban it. But
what can people do if they want to advocate? I'm thinking like you're an attorney. I'm like, do you ever feel inspired to do something in that area?
Vote with your money. Truly, like a few years ago when when I was pregnant with my first daughter, there was not a lot of clean beauty. And I think now people are so interested in clean makeup that now like Sephora's had to change a lot. Like I went recently and a lot of their stuff, they have a little check mark, a green check mark that it's clean. I think people are just not buying certain things anymore. And so companies have had to adapt.
No, that's such a good way to put it. Vote with your money. Absolutely. Yes. I know you mentioned the Trader Joe's M&Ms. Now I'm wishing we had a Trader Joe's here. But on your blog, you have a lot of links and options to Amazon, right? So people who may not have, like me, I don't have a Trader Joe's nearby to make purchases there.
There are a lot of good like companies that have candy now.
Yes. And you can buy in bulk too, if needed, right? On Amazon or other.
Yeah.
But you brought up beauty, and that's such a good point too, because I know Perchance to cook. We're talking about cooking, but we're talking about like what goes into our body, and makeup is one of those when we think about
everything. Even like stuff used to wash your dishes, everything in the house. I think it's all interconnected.
What would you say then? How do you balance the healthy eating, since we're talking about things even outside of cooking? How do you find balance, or what recommendations would you have for listeners in terms of balancing healthy eating with other important aspects of wellness, like exercise or stress management?
Yeah, I would say just like make a little time every week or every day for something you like walking or yoga. I think it doesn't have to be as extreme as a lot of our workout culture is here. I think it's as simple as like walking every day. And I think that takes the pressure off too, because it's one thing to know, like, I'm going to go for this long run and kind of dread it. But then you're like, oh, I'm just going to go walk, get some sunshine, which is good for your body anyways.
Right.
Fresh air.
Yes. Like little changes. So you mentioned that you made changes because your husband, Brendan, was diagnosed with or was facing some autoimmune challenges. Is that something that you're still mindful of? So I know you talked about little changes. So it just sounds like for the past 9-10 years, you've been making changes. You talk about like movement, you mentioned, because you're right. I think our culture, we're a very ambitious culture. We can take ambition to the next level, even with wellness and exercise. What have you found when it comes specifically to like the little changes when facing an autoimmune challenge? And I know that we're not medical doctors here. This is not like medical advice, but what small changes have you tried in your approach to handling some of those symptoms and challenges?
Yeah. So we did start, eating paleo, but then so the environmental working group is an amazing resource. It tells you like, you can look at your water and your zip code, how clean it is. So then we bought like a water filter from AquaTrue. And then we changed our soap. We don't use fragrances, literally lotion, shampoo, everything. I check on the environmental working group to make sure it is, they do run tests on it, and they tell you how clean it is, if there's any chemical that causes cancer in it or that's concerning. So basically, we started small. I didn't even think of soap until recently. So we just started with like beauty products, hair products. And then we were like, I wonder if we should change dishwasher soap. And so everything slowly over the years, we shifted something that is healthier.
That's so encouraging, because I think, here you are, you're a wellness expert. You have a decade of experience in this field with your looking at really healthy eating. And I think we can get overwhelmed because there are so many things that it's hard to remember that it's just one step at a time with the wellness journey so often.
And I can't remember who posted it, some big like health influencer. He interviewed someone and he was like, once a week, I plan out like an epic dessert, like my most favorite dessert. And then I make it amazing. I don't try to make it healthy, but I make it with organic butter and organic flour. And I just make it amazing as possible. I savor it and I enjoy it. And that is my dessert for the week. And I was like, that's a good point to just try to, because I healthify a lot of stuff and it's still delicious. But I was like, I like the idea of just like indulging, but just making it the best for you.
Yes. How do you ensure that the recipes that you make are both healthy and delicious? Because you've got some really awesome, how many recipes do you have on Perchance to Cook?
Like 400.
Yes. How do you do that? How do you find that balance where it's healthy, nutritious, but also delicious? Because they really are. And I can attest to it.
Recipe testing, and I won't post it if I don't like it.
Okay. So there are things that aren't posted. Is there like
there's so many stuff I'd try.
Wow. I think people don't realize that. Like how many times do you think you test something before you post it?
Now, I would say if I'm lucky 2 or like up to like 5. But the stuff from like back in the day, 10 years ago, it was just like my diary of, this is my trying this paleo recipe. So I just was like, I made it for dinner. I put it on the blog. So I'm going back and kind of like updating, retesting, rephotographing old stuff. But all my new stuff, yes, I test a lot.
Wow. Yeah. I think when I look at blogs about food, I rarely think about that process. So that's really interesting. Because are you looking for, I'm assuming, deliciousness because you're healthifying it, like the taste, the look, a little bit of all of it?
Or just if there's a certain aspect of it, I'm trying to figure out like if it's going to be gluten-free or dairy-free or both, and trying to figure out how to make it work.
Is there a family favorite, something that's a hit with the little ones and adults alike?
Yeah. We really like my coconut aminos fried rice.
Okay. I've seen that and I've made that. It's good.
Yeah. I love coconut aminos. That was another thing I found because my daughter had a soy intolerance as well. And now I'm just hooked on it. I think it tastes better than soy sauce. I don't know. I love it. So that's one. And then my kids weekly ask for a recipe that I make. It's like a rice and tuna and bean recipe. Salad. They love that. And then my husband and I, anything with meat sauce. I have like zucchini lasagna. That's really good.
Oh, wow. I need to try that.
Yeah. It uses like sliced zucchini instead of noodles. It's pretty good. It tastes like lasagna, but with like a vegetable twist.
Yes. Oh, that's a good way to get some zucchini, because I feel like zucchini, for me, I can't think of many ways to cook it. So I'm like super intrigued by the idea of a zucchini lasagna. I'm like, I need to go try it out. And also, I'm not good at like usually the typical lasagna. You have to like pre-boil or boil and do all those things. Yeah. Is it easier than that with zucchini? You just like lay it on there, or how do
you have to salt it to kind of get the moisture out? Because otherwise it'd be like too much liquid. But once you salt it and kind of like wipe off the moisture that comes out, then you just put it on.
Yum.
In between layers.
That sounds really good. Well, I think that's our like time. I feel like we could just keep chatting and chatting more. If you were to give any kind of recommendation, any inspiration or hope for someone who is feeling like they want to try to make some changes for their family, for themselves, whether it's because they're facing dietary restrictions or health challenges, what is the biggest inspiration or piece of hope you would give them?
I guess start with like a small amount of time. You could say 2 weeks, we're going to eat this way. And then if you notice that you feel better, that it's the inspiration. Or you notice symptoms shifting or changing, that's like the best way to stay motivated. That's how we started. We're like, all right, we're going to start doing this for a week. And then we're like, let's continue. And then we just kept up with it.
That's awesome. Because I'm sure there were things that were hard and challenging to let go of. I'm imagining things.
Yes. I mean, yes. But I think personally, paleo is a little too restrictive. Like, beans, rice. I don't necessarily like cutting out food like that unless you truly are allergic or it bothers your gut or something. But I think if you're just like thinking of like nature and like I said, one ingredient foods like beans, there's just beans in there. So that I think is like fine. But if you're looking at some processed cookie, there's like 100 ingredients in there. And that's when you know like the difference between, I think, whether you should be having it in your diet or not.
Absolutely. I love that you make it simple. I love that it sounds like you can offer something that's for everybody on Perchance to Cook. I feel like I got a lot of good takeaways to look at, different resources. I want to go check out the water in my zip code now.
I know. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. And make some zucchini lasagna. So thank you so much, Dominique, for your time. Where can people learn more about you? Do you have a social media or anything you want people to check out?
Sure. I have an Instagram, Perchance to Cook, also Facebook, and my website, perchancetocook.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dominique.
Thank you.